Since its beginning, humankind has used their hands and hand tools to communicate ideas. These cave paintings from Argentina, carbon dated circa 7300 BCE, show how the ancients literally used their hands to form their expression, the earliest recorded books. Written symbolic language found its origin in the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia, located around the Tigris and Euphrates River in what is modern-day Iraq and Syria. These ancient peoples developed a form of writing known as cuneiform and used wooden styluses to impress wedge-shaped marks in clay tablets, making records for religious, political, commercial, or educational purposes. Usually made from unfired clay, these were the only books in history to emerge from a library fire, more durable than they went in. Roughly about the same time, the Egyptian civilization rose along the River Nile, adopting hieroglyphics as wall art, but also recorded on papyrus scrolls. Papyrus is made from cross-hatched, wet reeds, pressed together and then dried. Scribes would use dried reeds to write or brush ink or dye onto the dry papyrus. These carved and signed reed holders found in tombs signify the importance of scribes to Egyptian civilization. Reeds and variants of feather quills were used in varying degrees in ancient Greece and Rome, and are still in use in some areas of India and China, as well as for writing Jewish scrolls of the Torah. Quills are hardier than reeds, which tend to soften and wear out rather quickly. In China, scribes employed brushes and bamboo shoots to create their elegant character sets, which number in the thousands. These documents represent some of the most beautiful examples of Chinese calligraphy. In this example, a brush is used to create character forms. Pressure on the brush produces thick or thin lines, which gave scribes a great deal of creative freedom to express their characters and record accurately the subtleties of the Chinese language. In this example, characters are formed using a bamboo shoot with shaped head with a broad stroke nib. Back in the West, quills had to be cut and prepared carefully by scribes using a honed blade. The cutting of quills became part of the writer's practice, as the quill would require frequent touch-ups. Scribes preferred primary feathers molted by geese for quills, as they could be found easily and cheaply. Writing with a quill is challenging for contemporary users, even if skilled with calligraphy. Hand-cut quills are, by nature, all different, so some practice is required. In most cases, scribes remove the feathers entirely from the quill and cut it down to a similar length as you would find in a contemporary pen, say 5 to 6 inches. This demonstrates the deliberateness that scribes employed, simultaneously engaging the tool, their hand, and their mind through the process of writing. In part, they achieved this by being slowed down somewhat in their process, having to pause to replenish ink or to reshape the quill. The process of writing was part of careful, considered thought. Quills continued to be used through the Middle Ages and up until the end of the 19th century. Over time, accessories for writing included especially designed inkwells, pounce powder to dry ink, shaped nib trimmers which replaced the knife, and shown here, a metal grip to protect the quill and keep the scribe's fingers clean of ink. Copper nibs for writing have been found in the ruins of Pompeii, but it was not until the Industrial Revolution in the West that steel nibs could be made plentiful and cheap enough to replace quills. The benefits should be obvious. They were reusable, inexpensive, and less work, freeing the writer from the chore of revisiting the quill tip for reshaping. This is a demonstration of a broad-tip steel dip pen. Note that the hand is held in a perfectly rigid position. This creates uniform thick and thin lines depending on the pen's unchanging axis, and further makes for a very ergonomic position for the scribe, preventing any repetitive stress in the fingers or the hand, although elbows and shoulders could prove to be an issue if work continued for too long without breaks. It did not take long for innovators in the early 19th century to devise a method to eliminate the inkwell from the writer's table. Steel nib pens with an ink reservoir in the handle first appeared in the form we recognize in a patent from France in 1827. Fountain pens developed out of the steel nib, which still retained the shape and design of the ancient quill. The benefits are obvious, requiring fewer visits to the well to replenish the reservoir. It increased the writer's efficiency and increased productivity by saving time. Experimentations with ballpoint pens started in the late 19th century, but it was not until 1938 that Laszlo Biro invented and patented the kind of ballpoint pen that we are familiar with today. Felt tip pens came out of Japan in the 1960s, as shown here with a large, chiseled edge Sharpie. In a return to the elegant brush pens of China, designers have recreated the look and feel with felt tip technology. Human interaction with writing and drawing has come full circle now with the use of a stylus on the tablet, which also allows for the direct interface with the hand itself. Returning again to ancient forms, albeit in very high-tech packaging, suggests a strong connection between old and new technology and its relationship to our physicality and our intellect. With hands, or with tools in our hands, we record, we worship, and we tell stories.